Pause. Try again. Is that okay? Hello and welcome to the final meeting of the Shareholder Committee for this administration on Monday the 13th of March at 4:30. You've got myself and Councillor de Gorn, and we'll start off with the first item, any declarations of interest. Excellent, nor do I. We'll move on to the minutes. I've read the minutes and they are a true and accurate record.
Happy to go into that.
You okay with that? We can sign them. The third item is public interest. We don't have any public speakers today, so we can move on to item 5, which is an update from Yorwaste. Sandy, over to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. As usual, section number 1 is my normal boilerplate. It doesn't change, but it's important that people who may not be familiar with the company understand that we deliver value in different ways. And specifically, us making a huge profit when we're charging the authority for some of our services isn't necessarily a good thing from a tax efficiency perspective. And we want to keep as much for the local authority pot as we possibly can. If we move on to the current performance, I can't recall, which is why I've just included it in here, whether we had actually announced the 5-star health and safety award at the last one or not, but I thought we'd just get it down in writing now.
Yeah, you said you were going for it and you
Yes.
were hopeful.
So we've now succeeded it, which is quite incredible. BIFA has it, but it only has it for its sort of energy landfill area. It doesn't actually have it for its main operations. I think the fact that we've got it and it covers all our operations, landfill all the way through to collections, is actually pretty significant, and it's a massive sort of achievement. Having said that, they've given us a list of some things that we need to improve, and we're going to continue to work on that to continue to sort of make the place as safe as we possibly can. Likewise, as part of our commitment to our staff and to our wider stakeholders, we achieved investors in people as well. I think that's all basically proving that we're not just focused on bottom line, we're focused on our people, which actually is more important in the long run. In terms of our finance, we're in line with our sort of full year profit. We'll probably be slightly ahead of it. You'll recall last year, it seems to be, I'm always sort of saying this is going to be a tough year. I think what we've been quite surprised at has been the strength of the revenues that we've received from our landfill gas, which has basically offset most of the downside on the fuel side of the business. If you'll recall, we've absorbed the fuel costs, which is why our budgeted profit was actually lower than last year's actual profit, because we've absorbed that cost rather than pass it on to the authorities. I think the other sort of opportunities that we've had is doing some third-party recycling brokering, which has also brought in a significant amount. Those two items together basically mean that we're not in a lost position. So they weren't predictable at that particular point when I said it was going to be difficult, and we can't necessarily rely on them for next year. But once again, it's a demonstration that we don't rest on our laurels. And we're not really quite sure how we can sort of continue to do well. We'll just need to keep looking for new avenues in which to do that. I think that the electricity price, as I might have said beforehand, we had some insulation in it in this year, and for some of the next fiscal year, in fact, for all of the next fiscal year, we'll be protected through the fact that we locked it in at probably the 10-year historic low before everything went a little bit crazy. That saved us somewhere between £600,000 and £800,000 this year alone, which sort of shows that we made the right call in that particular area. And we're also continuing to sort of, we did the interim pay award, which we discussed at the last meeting. That went down very well with the staff, and we will continue to sort of be compliant with the Living Wage Foundation going forward. Our cash position is strong. And I don't think we're going to accelerate the pay down of the shareholder loans, because once we've paid down the shareholder loans and those no longer exist, A, that's a saving for the company in terms of interest, but B, that also then allows us to start to consider dividends. Let's be frank though, that's going to take 4 or 5 years to do, even at an accelerated rate, because I did inherit quite a sizable sort of loan facility with the shareholder when I started this job 5 years ago. We did have a fire at the recycling facility in Harewood. This is in the picking line, which is sort of bolted onto the side of the building. It started in the sort of the hard plastics, most probably due to a toy or something that's had a lithium battery, which is quite often the cause of these midnight fires. It then sort of went into the actual picking line itself. the picking line was a write-off, and when it got into the main building, that's where the main fire suppression system managed to stop it going any further. So that's put our picking line out of operation, but we were able to get a temporary one up and running within 4 weeks, and we'll be back to full operation before the start of the next fiscal year, which I think is actually quite another massive achievement in turning that around, because that particular facility is very critical to rebates that the City of York achieves. Governance and best practice in terms of Veritau, they've reviewed our information governance. They've given us some recommendations, and we will be sort of progressing those forward over the next one. I think we pretty much got a pass in terms of everything's there, but it's maybe not as formalized or as structured as it needs to be to sort of tick all the relevant boxes in today's sort of tick box society. So we'll get those boxes ticked over the coming months. And in terms of the sort of environment and climate change, I think we're happy to sort of say that we're almost now, in fact, I think, yeah, we're probably about a month off being 3 years with 0 cars points, which is quite a major achievement. That also saves us some money in terms of the fees that we pay to the Environment Agency for compliance on an annual basis. And we'll continue to sort of focus on that going forward. In terms of solar, that's still ticking along in the background. We're now sort of moving into this, from the pre-app stage into the actual planning stage, and we're just pulling together bits of information that's required from that. So we'll be progressing that in conjunction with CYC going forward. In terms of next year's business plan, I think the big issue is inflation, which is very high. We can't pass a full inflationary increase onto the authorities, much though we'd like to do it. And therefore, I think all in all, we were looking to, in light of everything that's going on in the current environment, set our budget at just above break even, which seemed to be the most all-round shareholder value effective story. We may yet still have a few upsides which are not contractual and not planned, which should hopefully help us improve a little bit on that situation. But I think given that everybody is tightening belts this year, it made sense for us to also tighten belts and continue to seek for those opportunities. And once again, cash is quite healthy in that respect, so we're not expecting to have to come back and ask the authority for any cash in the near future or even middle future. And our strategic priorities remain unchanged, which is focusing on health and safety, basically doing the best job we can and sort of trying to be as cost efficient and maximising shareholder value. Nice and simple.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just the one about the fire that you mentioned. Does that is that covered by insurance, and is that going to lead to increased premiums, or how does it?
We've got a fairly sizable excess on our insurance, and that's primarily because insurance in the waste market it's a very small market with very few number of suppliers. And in order to get any form of cover, you need to take quite a high excess. And we're just looking to sort of see how that all sort of pans through in terms of whether it meets that requirement under the excess.
Right. And as you say, obviously the clear message about the importance of separating out batteries from other waste if at all possible, isn't it?
Correct.
So,
and the reinstated picking line will have additional sort of fire safety in terms of additional sort of monitoring that we didn't have in it, because if we're being totally honest, even though we've had 2 external reviews checking to see our fire plan's comprehensiveness, it was one of these ones that nobody seemed to pick up. And it seems to be that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and we'll just need to continue to try and reduce the opportunities for those. So we will be covering that in the future in terms of making sure it's got more robust fire safety on that specific area.
right. And on a more positive note, I'm pleased to hear your comments about solar potential. Is that something, I mean, obviously you mentioned about profits and so forth, but that would be a sort of an invest to save type of.
Correct, yeah. I think there's the relatively smaller scale ones which we can look to put on our buildings where they've got the appropriate orientation, and that's something that we will do relatively straightforward. And then you've got the 2 strategic opportunities at Herwood and Seamakar. Those ones will very much be driven by the desires and requirements of the authority in terms of how they want to proceed with that, whether they want to do it individually as CYC or an NYCC, whether they want to do that collectively as a joint venture, and the timescales for that in terms of how they'd like to progress. There are arguments for doing the big bang from a carbon now versus carbon later, but from a commercial business sense, from a technological progress sense, and from an asset replacement sense, there's also an argument that says ideally you do them in blocks where you put in 4 megawatts this year, 4 megawatts the following year, 4 megawatts the following year. Then what you do is you avoid a future cliffhanger where you have to replace them all at the same time again with a massive price increase. And you also get the benefit of being able to sort of make some advantage of technological improvements, because if you move from the current sort of silica-based solars onto perovskite-based, if perovskite becomes commercially available, it is a game changer in terms of solar, specifically for our latitude where we don't have that much great sunset, but it can make, perovskite can make benefit of a wider range of
what technology are you referring?
Sorry?
What technology are you referring to?
Solar panels.
Yeah, but something specific.
I'm probably mispronouncing it. Perovskite, I believe, is the correct word. Is that the correct?
Yeah, it is. It's basically
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It widens the spectrum which can be absorbed and is
So instead of
significantly
it
cheaper to produce
Right.
and a lot less environmentally impact because you
Right.
don't need such high temperatures to produce it as well.
And presumably the other element of that is the grid connection, and you have that.
The grid connection is
I'm going to stop the conversation.
Sorry,
Yes.
that would
Okay,
be.
I am going to stop it because we will go into the various different projects, and for a variety of reasons, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No.
Can I just say many thanks for everything you've done? I mean, the Yorwaste over the last 4 years has done an absolute fundamental 180-degree turn. It's more robust. It's the way that you are treating your people is how I think the rest of the industry should be treating their people. You're treating them with pride, you're training them, you're making sure that all the health and safety is sorted. And because of all of that and the environmental lead that you're taking, you're keeping your people and you're making sure that the company grows and becomes even better than it is. The couple of questions I had, because I do want to finish on a real high note, a couple of questions I had is exactly as Andy said about the lithium batteries. I think we all need to work harder in getting the message out that you don't put them in the waste. So on a personal level, I was saying before the meeting, I took my electric toothbrush to Boots. They won't take it, even though they're supposed to through the WEEE directive. They refused to take it, which means they said you have to take a single electric toothbrush to the tip. Which, you know, I do because I'm boring, but would the majority of people do that? So I think we need to, between us over the next 12 months, work on how we get that messaging out that you can't put it in the bin because, you know, you may hurt people, there will be a fire, there will be implications. So at some point, I think we need to do something along those lines. In terms of the renewable energy, I know that you've put an application in
conjunction with the shareholders,
yeah, and I'm very hopeful that that's going to be successful. So we should see, whatever way the project pans out, we should see that go along. And I think actually doing it in bite-sized chunks is sensible in the same way as it avoids the cliff edge that you're talking about. But I really do want to thank you, Sandy, for the amount of work that you've done, the amount of work that your team have done. And every time something comes up, you pull another rabbit out of the hat. It's commendable, the amount of activity that you've done and the achievements that you've made. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
You're quicker back, hopefully, than it took you.
I'm going to look for a different road back this time. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Our next report is from Veritau. Max, do you want to take us through the report? Just briefly and succinctly.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll just break it down into 3 sections. The first is just general business update. The second will be looking forwards to next year, and then if we can just touch on the purchase of the subsidiary company shares.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of general business update, I mean, it's all set out in the report, hopefully. There's not really a great deal of change compared to the last report to the committee. We've continued to gain new contracts. Recruitment retention remains a problem or a risk for us. We try and address that by growing our own capacity by training staff, and we've been successful in doing that, and a number of people have progressed since the last report. We are also in the process of, there's 2 TUPE exercises underway. One is to transfer staff that are currently employed by Harrogate Borough Council and Craven District Council into Veritau. So there are 9 posts. There's actually currently only 6 staff who will be transferring, so we'll be immediately inheriting a shortfall. But, I suppose that's probably to be expected. We are also transferring the staff who are currently employed within the subsidiary company Veritau North Yorkshire into our parent company. But both those exercises will be concluded on the 1st of April. In terms of the sort of financial position, we are, as we reported last time, expecting to break even this year. We did budget for a small profit. The pay award wiped that out. Yeah. So looking forwards, in the covering report, I've included details of the business plan and the key sort of messages from that. Unfortunately, I attached the current details of the current business plan. I didn't attach next year's business plan, but I'm very happy to share that if you'd like to see it. So in terms of a bit like Yorwaste, I think it is going to be a bit of a challenging year next year. The budget is tight. The expected pay award is likely to restrict any ability to generate much of a profit next year. However, we are still expecting to grow the business. We've just this week picked up quite a large contract, and there's another one in the pipeline. So we will be growing as a business, but again that comes with certain risks around capacity. Just sort of moving on to the third element. So as part of the reorganisation in North Yorkshire, the existing district councils who are shareholders in Veritau North Yorkshire, so there's 5 councils who are shareholders, those shares will transfer to the new council, and that will effectively mean that North Yorkshire Council will be a shareholder in Veritau, so it will own 50% of Veritau, and it will own 50% of Veritau North Yorkshire. Veritau North Yorkshire itself will be a dormant company. That creates, there's an opportunity. We see that as being a company that we can use as a vehicle to admit new councils. We have a few councils who are expressing an interest in joining Veritau, so that would be a useful and easy way to admit them as new members. But if we don't address the issue, it also means there's an imbalance then between North Yorkshire and York, which is, I don't think, a healthy situation. So we are proposing to purchase those shares. Initially, we were going to purchase them from the district councils directly, but it's for a number of reasons, we've now moved to a situation where they'll transfer to the new council and we'll buy them from the new council. So that's the proposal. It's been agreed by the Veritau board itself, and it's been agreed by North Yorkshire, so they are happy to proceed. It is a reserved matter within the shareholder agreement, so we do need agreement of both North Yorkshire and York to do this sort of transaction. So hence the request to the committee to approve that as well.
I'm more than, having read the papers and understood why it's happening, I'm more than happy to approve the purchase them. Andy and I think we both are, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we both are. I just have a slightly different question. Given what you've said about how difficult the trading was this year and the year before, and it will be coming up, does that leave you enough in reserves for Veritau going forwards?
I think it does. I think it does. Veritau itself currently has reserves about $500,000. VNY it has reserves of 180,000, which once we become the sole shareholder, those reserves can effectively be paid as a dividend. So I think we're in a comfortable position. That's not to say that trading isn't going to be a bit of a challenge for the next few years.
No, that's good to hear, because that was my only concern on it, because it is a big chunk of money. So that's good to hear. Again, over the last 3 years, I would say, Veritau has become much more robust, and your strategy going forward, especially having an empty vehicle in which you can put the other councils, I think is a really strong strategy to take everything forward. And the value that you're delivering back into York is good. So it's gratefully received, and thank you for all your hard work. On the sustainability side, I'm delighted to see all the different work that you're doing. You know, you've got hybrid work going, you've made sure that you've put sustainability at the heart of an awful lot of your plans. So again, many thanks for that, because an awful lot of different companies see it as an add-on rather than core to what you're doing. Again, I have nothing more really to ask you, Max, apart from just to give you our thanks for the hard work. And if you would pass that on to your team, I would be really grateful.
I will do. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just to agree with that particular point, paragraph 28, I'm glad to see. It's really encouraging to see that you're arranging for staff to have access to a climate change e-learning course. And I think that, you know, obviously, if there are learning points for us within City of York Council, you know, in terms of that being made available to our staff, that'll be useful. To share
We've actually got one.
right.
We've got one that most of the staff have now been through. Sorry, this is just in the City of York.
Well, I was going to say that
amazing
is it's effectively the same course.
It's the same course.
Right. Yeah, I thought it might be. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Max, many thanks. Any questions, give me a shout. Okay, thank you ever so much. And then Sarah, if you want to come to the table for Make It York.
So I'll just give a quick overview of the report. Yeah, very quick. Yeah.
Quick overview before Richard shouts at me, I need to put my speaker on. Quick overview, and then I think there are some fantastic highlights in here.
Yeah. It's been an interesting year. It's been a difficult year. It's been a year of change. And I think what the report shows is that we are moving forward. I think it's clear that we've put a better governance structure in place, and the governance is much stronger. We've got new board members, we've set up a members advisory group, we've got new tendering procedures, we've got a new delivery plan, which is in the appendix, a service delivery plan, which is much more comprehensive than previously. We have regular client meetings, we're sharing much more information with the local authority. So I think we've put a strong governance position in place for Make It York and going forward. In terms of business performance, I think it's strong. In fact, I think it's very strong. I'd say
I would say it's amazingly strong. I mean, from where you were to where you brought it through.
I think we can claim to be the best DMO in the UK. I will keep saying it. We've had 10 fantastic marketing campaigns. We've produced 4 publications. We've had 18.3 million visits to the Visit York website and social media, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And we've seen a 15% increase in the people using Visit York website. So that's got to be good news. We know this year the Residents' Festival had more views than ever before. So hopefully we got to residents to come out and enjoy the Residents' Weekend. Member retention remains at 88%, which I think is good given the year that we've had and the uncertainties that people have had. We've relocated the Visitor Information Centre, and I think it's in a much more prominent position, albeit smaller. I think that it's better accessible for people to be able to come and see the Visitor Information Centre. We've had 10 major events in a year just after COVID, because if you remember, we were still this time last year, still in COVID, and a lot of events weren't coming back to cities. I think we've had better relationships with the traders at the Shambles Market, and we've been able to put a few different things in place for them to help them during this year, which has been a difficult time for them as well. We've got a draft tourism strategy. And I think the final thing I'd like to say is we joined with the Civic Trust and we won a National Lottery Heritage Fund for 249,999, which is really good, which will bring about projects into the city over the next 18 months. In terms of the finances, it has been difficult. I've been very, very cautious. I think at Christmas when I came, I was probably overcautious in the fact that I said that we would be in more of a deficit, but it was a very uncertain period, and some of the tactics and things we put in place, we weren't sure whether they were going to be successful. They have been successful. So if I'm guilty of anything, it's been overcautious in the past year. And I would say that the reason why we've been able to move to an 80k positive is partly it's been difficult in terms of staff recruitment, which I think everybody will say has been a difficult period. So we've made some savings through the delay in staff recruitment. We had a business rate rebate, which was higher than expected. Savings from the office move, we always knew would be significant, but I think we're just learning how significant they are. We've been very, very cautious on repairs, which we needed to do, which we now can move forward and do. Management of expenditure has been much strongly controlled. Our third-party contracts, we've managed much tighter than previously, and that's the same with project budgets as well, because part of it is about bringing income, but also managing your expenditure. And I think that's where we've really made the massive savings that we've been able to do. And also our tendering processes have helped by having proper financial procedures in place, has actually helped us manage the budget. And also management of contracts have been much better. And some of the things that we have done differently have meant that we have saved money rather than gone through a third party to deliver some of the activity. So overall, I think it's a positive. Next year, we are suggesting that we'll make a similar amount of profit. Again, I would say it is cautious. I will be cautious. It's still early days. I think we are turning the organisation around. The team have been absolutely fantastic this year, and I'm looking forward to another year of success. Thank you.
Sarah, many thanks for that. The turnaround that you and your team have managed in Make It York is phenomenal. I hear you keep saying the word cautious. I would say you're prudent, because you're prudent in terms of finances, but you're anything but cautious in terms of the activity. The 10 activities that you've put through the city have worked really, really well. I personally really enjoyed the ice sculpture, and I know that the footfall on that was massive. And if I've read the numbers correctly through your report, we're now up to 10 million visitors in the city, which I would keep quoting the number 8.2. So 10 million people through our city is just phenomenal. You've taken it from a deficit position, a big, big deficit position, to a very healthy profit this year, with an awful lot of hard work and an awful lot of attention to detail. I know there's been a couple of bumps along the line, and I know that you've got a great team around you. In terms of going forward, I've had a look at your future plans for the shambles, and they're good. And if we can get the lottery funding or the monies to actually do some of the work that you want to happen there, it's great. But it's also really, really heartening to see the way that the shambles market traders and yourself are working so much better together. And there is a culture of support and change rather than same old, same old. So, I'm really, really impressed by what you've managed to achieve, and anything we can do to continue to support that, I'll be delighted to do so. Andy.
Yeah, I echo that, and very much welcoming the work that Make It York has been achieving. I'm not sure. I don't think I need to declare this as an interest, but I'm also director of the BID Business Improvement District. It was just to preface that because our recent away day, I think there was still a feeling there needs to be more close working between the two organisations, just to try and make sure that everyone's clear about what boundaries, who's doing what, and where there is an overlap. Make it clear that we work together as much as we can. So, very much welcome the report. And that's the only thing I want to add is that there is that sort of tension between the markets, Make It York, the BID, that all the different partners in the city that have an interest in trying to get that balance right between the visitor economy and the residents. You mentioned, I'm glad to hear you mention the residents' weekend, which is very much a sales pitch for the fact that the city is for everyone, including residents, not just for visitors, as some people sometimes suggest.
Can I just pick up on that point? Absolutely agree with you that the residents' weekend is a sales pitch, but I think what Make It York have done I'm assuming this is on purpose, is make sure that all of the different activities also reach all the residents. So the ice sculpture, I bumped into loads of people. And then the one where you had the soldiers, the Christmas soldiers, with all the different leaflets so that people could tick them off and win prizes. So I think what you're managing to build up is there is a reason for everybody to go into town, not people from London or people from Edinburgh.
Yes, definitely. That's what we're doing. We're trying to work much more closely with the BID. We've got a meeting next week to look at kind of like a memorandum of understanding and how we can maximise and work together even stronger than we have been in the past. So it's a kind of journey. Yeah, and very much so, promote the city for residents, because we want residents to come and enjoy everything that we're doing. I think on Friday we launched a new trail, our sculpture trail. Snooks are going to appear in 2024, very much around resident engagement. We did a competition to ask residents which character they wanted, and we went with the majority vote, Snooks, and we really want to engage with people on that journey of a year campaign for the next sculpture trail. So very much we see the city as for residents as well as visitors.
And I'm looking forward to the Snook wandering around, because I couldn't decide between the two of them. Sarah, many thanks. And please pass on our thanks to your team, and what a great turnaround you've achieved. Thank you again. Thank you. Karen, do you want to come onto the hot seat? Oh, I've got both of you. Yes. All right. We're not going into any of the pink. We're not going into private. Okay, so, and I have read your papers, so just make sure that you keep the conversation, please. Thank you.
Yeah. A year of two halves really this year, I would say. First part of the year started off quite busy across the board. In terms of City of York's demand, it has significantly reduced over the last half of the year. Council's been making budgetary savings, and as a result of that, cutting back on some of their temporary staff, and also making sure that some of the staff who've been there temporary for a long time have been moved on to permanent contracts. We've been able to assist with one permanent role for the council that they were struggling with, so that was quite helpful. And we are continuing to rely on second-tier vendors for some of our specialist roles, particularly in social work. Our budget from the council for the year, though, is less than we forecast because of that cutback so far. By way of complete contrast, schools has been twice as busy as we anticipated, and as fast as we can recruit people, they're out working. We have done no business development in terms of clients. All of our focus has been and continues to be to recruit candidates. with a view to training people up ourselves, going out to different markets, looking at different groups that we need to reach that we aren't reaching, and our marketing team are doing something very specific around that in the next 2 to 3 months. On our commercial side, it's been a challenging year. It's taken us a little while to get going, but we've just appointed a new member of staff, and I'm pleased to say that we're getting results from that already. The person's only been in post for 2 weeks, so that's been good. In terms of our other activities, we're doing a bit of a review of our website, and we're putting in place new application forms. We're planning on holding a staff awards event later in the year, which is something that we used to run regularly before COVID intervened. So we'll be glad to get back to that. We've actually gone to the place that we were planning to go to in 2020. We've been able to resurrect that booking, so that's good. We've got some staff that are using we're using the apprenticeship levy to train, which is good because we've not been able to utilise that before. We managed to find a specialist recruitment firm that were doing apprenticeships around recruitment specifically. We've just done a survey of our staff as well on the staff benefits that we provide to them, and we're working on which bits of those we can offer and what they find valuable. We're hoping to work with York University on our carbon reduction plan. We're trying to tap into their sustainability course, and they've got some master's students doing sustainability, and as part of their course they need to do a 12-week assignment towards their thesis. We bid for that, and we're interviewing 2 people next week who've applied for it, so we're looking forward to being able to use them and have somebody dedicated to just doing that bit of work with our temporary staff. We are looking, in line with the business plan, at acquisitions. We've spoken to quite a lot of different opportunities over the last year. We're in further stages with one particular company at the moment. We had a positive meeting last week, just waiting for some more information to come back on that one. Obviously, anything we do on that will be coming to the shareholder for further permissions when we get further down the line. Just to finally flag up, in terms of the council's contract with the company, that's up for renewal this year. At the moment, it's a TECL contract, which means that we don't have to bid for that. We just need to be aware that further down the line, we might need to separate out certain bits of the company while the council work is going down and other bits are going up. But that's for further investigation, I think. And we're hoping to get the budget agreed at the board meeting at the end of this month. We're bringing that to you at the next meeting. At the moment, we're anticipating the profit will be significantly down next year. It's going to be a transitional year, really, with the council work reducing and the commercial and schools work increasing. But we're hoping to kind of get back closer to what we've done this year, perhaps in the year afterwards when things have stabilised a little more. Okay.
Okay, Ian, do you want to add anything?
Yes, if I may, Chair, very briefly. I would say it's not just been a frustrating year, it's been a frustrating 3 years for all the reasons that we know about. The up and down movements in turnover, particularly in one direction, do need to be carefully watched because the TECL requirements will need to be met. I know there's an average over 3 years, but it is something that we'll need to think very carefully about. And if there's any budgetary planning to be done, I would hope that it will be done before the last month of the financial year. Let's just leave it at that. I'm sure members will be aware of that. That's it. Otherwise, I'd like to compliment Karen and her team on running the business very effectively in a very difficult period for trading. And we hope that the Yorkshire-wide aspects of the business will take off this year. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Helen, I can't, yeah, I'd forgotten that you were here. Apologies. If you would like to join, that would be great.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go on the back of Councillor Cuthbertson's comment there, we were very well aware of the TECL, or the vertical arrangements as it's now called, and we are reviewing. Obviously, we are, as we've got a budget which was obviously agreed as well, that we're reducing our agency numbers. However, we have tolerances within there, and we're still confident that the we'll be within that for the vertical arrangements going forward. But yes, I'm very well aware and working closely with Karen on that as well. And the details will be presented very shortly when we've got options. But yes, that is in hand. So I just didn't want you to think that it wasn't in hand and isn't aware.
Okay, many thanks for that. So what I heard from that is that any issues with the contract, whether it's called TECL or whatever the new phrase was, because I haven't heard that one before, apologies, are in hand and will be sorted. The budget will be sorted before the end of the year as well, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of comments to make. You have done, both of you and your team have done an extraordinary job over the roller coaster that we've had, certainly for recruitment over the last 3 years. It is difficult when a council decides that they are going to remove as many temporary staff as possible and bring them all in-house. For the council, that is a sensible decision. And therefore, there will always need to be some realignment. It's great to hear about the success that you're having with schools, and the commercial success will come. It's always just about timing.
Yeah.
And Karen, we know you well, and we know that you run a really, really good team. The new officers that you've got, the welcoming that you've got in there, and the footfall that you've now got passing it and actually coming in for the different roles is great. It's not beyond the wit of man how we organise, whether it's a TECL or a whatever it's called, how we organise the business so that we make the most of it for both bodies.
Yeah.
So good luck on the acquisition. I will be watching that carefully to see what comes up. But can I just say many thanks for the hard work and the way that you have managed to support everything that we've wanted to do inside of the council. Thank you. Yeah. Many thanks. Are we now on to any other business? Okay, I'm not aware of any urgent business, so therefore we can close this meeting. Okay.